So very recently I uploaded a video where I talked about Ninjago hot takes, and I'm gonna be honest, I did not expect that video to go down so well, but if you haven't seen that video, please do. But that video was me talking about the comments that you guys posted that had your hot takes, and that video has generated hundreds more of said hot takes. And I feel like it's almost a disservice if I don't make this into another video. And I will also say, if you do want this to continue to happen, please continue to comment your hot takes, and I will continue to talk about them. But yes, it is no secret that hot takes are a very interesting topic when it comes to Ninjago, or any sort of media in general, because it does present ideas on how they could have taken the show, or how the show shouldn't have gone in a certain direction. And I do like to enjoy the theoretical what if that comes with it. So just like that, let's get into more Ninjago hot takes, and in similar vein to the previous video, I have done my best to not view your guys' comments, even though I do typically love to, but I want to go in as genuine as I possibly can to give you a more real reaction. So just like that, let's get into it. Now this is going to be where I hope you guys have easier names to say this week, because in the previous video I had to apologize to about half of you. But let's start with one from Derpy Avocado. Actually, that is much simpler, thank you. My hot take is that Zane should never have been a robot. I wish he kept his human side, and it would have been more interesting if he could maybe be a cyborg instead. Ooh, okay, I'm gonna have to be honest, I do think I'm gonna have to disagree with you here, because I do agree with what you're saying, but I do think at the same time, in current form, Zane is the best blend of a human and a Nindroid. Even though I've got separate problems with him when it comes to Dragon's Rising, but that's a whole nother video. I do think if he stayed as a human form, and when you say human form, I'm assuming you're referring to his Season 3 and before state, before he sacrificed himself. But I will say, I do think it would be a much better if he did still have that arc, especially that sacrifice. There's a reason why it's noted as one of the most saddest scenes in Ninjago. But I will say, I understand where you're coming from mostly. Because I will say there is a massive argument that has been a thing in the last few years of Ninjago, where people are saying that Zane is almost a bit too robotic, and he's a bit too Nindroid-esque and not really human-like. And I do agree with it for the most part, but I do still think in the grand scheme of things, Zane still has that very human aspect to himself, and I'm glad that we do have it. But if we're talking, again, purely on an aesthetic basis, I think we are in the best place it could be, where Zane has that ability to cloak himself as a human, because I think that's a really cool ability, and it's actually served him fairly well in the grand scheme of things. So I think ultimately, I'm glad he's more robotic. I'm glad that we have the Titanium Ninja, but I understand where you're coming from. So that's actually a good one, and I want to know what you guys think as well about this. But thank you, Derpy Avocado. The second hot take for this video is gonna come from the Spectre AW, and his hot take is, I know the series will never truly end and basically become an MCU, but if it ever did, it should end the way it started, with the 4 OG Ninja. And again, I'm gonna have to disagree with this, because I understand where you're coming from, and there is a part of me that really enjoys when we do just have the 4 Ninja. I do enjoy that OG feel, because obviously, I've been with Ninjago since the literal beginning. So I fully understand where you're coming from, and again, we have had some examples in recent time where we've had the 4 OG, mainly Season 9, but I will say that ultimately, I do think if Ninjago was to end, it would have to be with the 4, Nia, Lloyd, Wu, Garmadon, hopefully. I do think one thing that's made Ninjago what it is today is the amazing team that we have. So I think if we did just reduce it down to the 4, I do think it would be a bit disappointing. I think maybe just like a nice hybrid of the two. I think if we did just have one more adventure in Dragon's Rising, for example, where we do have the 4 OG Ninja going out and doing a task, I think that would be really cool to see. But I do think ultimately, I think if they sidelined Lloyd, Nia, for example, and just had the 4 for a final season, I do think it would be a bit of a disservice, especially considering how well they've done with Lloyd and Nia's characters. But I do get what you're saying, because I do have a very soft spot for the OG Ninja. But the point is that I think if a final season was to happen, it would have to essentially be a culmination, basically crystallized, but also not crystallized. Alright, picture me scrolling through the comment section trying to find the next hot take, And this one has just caught my attention because for the most part, this is just a season review. But anyway, Silver Grape is me. Your hot take. Let's see if any of these are a hot take. Season 7 is good. I mean, I'd agree, but that might be considered a hot take as well. Season 11 is bad. I don't think that's a hot take. I think most people would agree, but I like season. There's not a season in Ninjago I don't like. But, yeah. The island is not bad. A good little introduction to Seabound, which I adore. Okay, let me know if you want a video on the island, because I could talk for about 20 minutes about how I think the island is really good. But anyway, Seabound's a gem, not a hot take. Crystallize is overhated. It's not good either. I just think they missed a lot of potential and right in the season. They could have brought back Nier at the end to help fight the ninja with the Overlord, and it would be super cool. I think Crystallize... I mean, a lot of people don't like Crystallize. I do like Crystallize. I know earlier I said a final season not like Crystallized, but I will say that Crystallize, claiming it's overhated, I don't think is a hot take, because I know there's a lot of people who really like Crystallize, me included, but I don't know, that's a weird one. I don't know whether it is or isn't. Dragon's Rising is overhated. Dragon's Rising is not overhated. I will say, Dragon's Rising is getting, like, universal love, let's be honest. And then, Season 2 Part 2 is a gem. Yes, to an extent, because it has a lot of stuff I really like. But yeah, you've done a lot there. I think half of it is not a hot take, I will say, but some of the stuff you put in there, I think is up for debate. I think you'll get a lot of people talking about whether or not Season 7 is good. To be fair, if you like Season 7 or not, please let me know how and why. But that is Hot Take 3, I technically, let's just keep it at that. But then let's talk about Hot Take number 4. And this one is going to be coming from Bruno Santo. And his first hot take is, some of Ninjago's recent new villains are much better than the classic villains. And the classic villains are from Season 1 to 7. Ooh. Okay, I will say there are definitely some villains that are better than the classic ones. I would make the argument that certain ones are definitely better than others. But what are my examples? Now, I will say I haven't got a full example ready for you because I'm going to be honest, I do have a video idea where I essentially talk about all of the villains ranked. And it will be a personal opinion tier list, similar to my Elemental Masters one. But I will say, I will make the argument that certain of the newer villains are better than the older ones. I mean, I really do like Raz, for example. I do think Raz is a bit better than some of the classic villains. And also, if we're talking more of the Wildbrain era, I will say I do really like ones like King Vangelis. So, I do agree with you to an extent, but also some of them are definitely some of my favorite ones in the classic tier list. And your other one is, instead of introducing new threats, Ninjago should use/reuse villains they have at their disposal, including the mechanic. Yes, but also no. The thing about the mechanic is that he works in a vacuum because he is essentially a lower tier villain that has definitely graduated himself up, and he does find himself teaming up with a lot of the bigger villains. But the thing is that these bigger villains, for example, Pythor, King Vangelis, Kalmar, these characters are all ones that either meet their fate or ones that have their arc completed. So I do think to an extent certain ones could be reused if that context was added. I mean, look at Raz. Raz has been the villain now for the first season and the second season of Dragon's Rising because he has an arc that covers it. Whereas some of the more classic villains, for example Chen, really do not exist outside of any sort of space. Also, they're dead. But yeah, certain characters can certainly find their way into newer seasons. And I do think they do have the potential to flagship newer seasons. I mean, why do you think everyone wants the Time Twins to come back? I think that's the exact reason there. But that is a good one. Thank you for commenting. But we're now going to be moving on to the second to last one for this episode. And this one is going to be coming from Alania, and their hot take is that they have hated Wu since season 11 because he does feel very out of character. Now again, I do feel like this is an episode where I'm just disagreeing with people, and to be fair, this is the whole point of hot takes. But I will say that I think Wu since season 11 actually went through a somewhat decent arc. Because if we think about it, Wu in season 11 is very much pitting the blame on himself. He blames himself for what happened with Zane, and he feels like he has to go rescue it on his own, thinking he's not actually gonna come back. But the thing is that then when the ninja do come back and they save the day for him, he does basically go through this useless arc. And the problem with that is that he is just completely stuck in a rut. But then you will find that Season 13 does actually improve on this, and it gives Wu his spark back, and he does find himself being the master to the ninja again, and he just does become more confident in himself. And then the thing is that we see the island where he's going out on his own adventures, and then we see Crystallize where he absolutely slams the villains. So I understand why people would not like Wu in this era, because he does go through something a bit different to what we usually know. But I do think, to an extent, Wu actually has a very decent arc. And this is why, again, I do have a set of videos where I talk about the main characters of the show and how they progress through the seasons. And that is one of the reasons I want to do it on Wu. Because in my opinion, this era for him is very interesting, and it's one I definitely want to talk about more. And then let's get on to the final hot take for this episode. And this is definitely one I need to respond to, because I actually did respond to it when the video first came out. And this one is going to come from Meek Zewionka. I don't know, I've definitely butchered that, I do apologize, my friend. But they said, one of my hot takes is that the Ninjago movie, Sons of Garmadon and Hunted masks are one of, if not the best ninja masks. And there's my response right there. Because I'm gonna be honest, this is possibly one of the hottest takes I have seen. Because personally speaking, I absolutely detest these masks. Now actually, I want to be a bit more specific, because there are two contexts to consider with this. The first one being the masks in the show. And in the show, I actually do think they're somewhat fine. I think the weird gimmick where they'll bring down specifically the bottom of the hood to show their face, I think that's a bit strange. But I am also thinking of it in the context of the minifigures themselves. And I'm going to be honest, I absolutely hate them. There is just something so inherently annoying about having those two pieces where you have to remove their heads. And I'm going to be honest, it actively made me somewhat dislike those versions of the suits. Even though they're still some of my favorites, I just don't like to handle them. So I do want to know whether you think it's specifically due to the show or to the minifigures themselves. Because I will say that the dual molded heads from before it were really nice, and then we got those ones. And then afterwards we got the legacy masks, which again were also fantastic. So they do just exist between two really good masks as well, which doesn't help it. But overall, it does depend on the context, but I still really think they're the worst ones. But those are the hot takes for this video, and let me know which ones you do agree with and which ones you disagree with. And again, shout out to every single person who I've talked about in this video, and shout out to everyone who has commented, because while those are the ones I've picked, I have been reading through them as I was doing this video, and they are all have got merit to them, and I do wish I could continue to have them in one video. But ultimately, this does leave the door open to a part 3, and either I will continue to go through this comment section, or I will go through the comment section on this video. So if you do have a hot take, please comment it down below, because I may pick yours. But that about does it for this episode, guys, and I do hope you enjoyed. And like I said, let me know which ones you do agree with and which ones you disagree with. And just any of the things that I've said, feel free to counter what I've said, because ultimately it's all just opinion based, and that's the joy of debate. But like I said, guys, thank you for watching, and again, I hope you enjoyed. But that's about it. Take care. Okay,